Well, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for coming to join me. And this is a video that brought me great anguish. I was really dreading doing it for a while, but it has to be done. And I think for me personally, there was just so much evolved emotionally and just when I understand prophecy of something. And the title of this is going to be, what will be the event that will bring back Jesus is coming back on this earth, the second coming of Jesus. And I had done a video previously about, it was a prophecy video about the future of America. And, you know, I pray that you'll stay with me to the end, because this will fully make sense. And I pray that it will give many people revelations of it. So please stay with me to the end. This will be a great video, very insightful. And so I had done this video of really the future of America. And this involved, I went to a prophetic school. Jeremiah Johnson had done a class, had done a seminar. Basically, I paid to go there. And it, you know, I didn't really have any expectations coming into it. But I went anyways, because I said, you know, this seemed like God was really asking me to go. And so I had, when I was at the seminar, I had gotten with another guy, this guy that was a prophetic person. You know, all these people are prophetic people there, basically. And we were talking about, you know, we had broken up at one point, and you were basically giving people their prophecy. And I was like, wow, I don't know if I can do this, because I don't know. I've never done this before. So anyways, they paired us up. And what I had seen, you know, the person basically asks you questions, and you tell them what you see. And so I had this, from this recap here, from this prophetic conference I went to, the person asked me a bunch of questions, and after every question I gave them a vision of what I saw. So the first thing I saw was I saw a cow. Well, the first thing I saw actually was a ranch, that this person was on a ranch. And then the next thing that God showed me was a picture of a cow. And then I had seen a single blade of grass, like a wheat grass. And that's the first things that were shown to me. And then there was he asked me, you know, questions about what he should do. He said he was going to build tiny houses, and or whether he should do this artistic project. And what God showed me then was basically this symbol, and I could show you here, and then the symbol zoomed out, and I didn't understand the meaning of the symbol. It made no sense to me. And then the symbol zoomed out, and there was a bunch of tiny lights, like a Christmas display with millions or thousands of lights, you know, on a tree. And that was what God showed me, was that these are communities. This little symbol was one little community of tiny houses, you know, little tiny houses arranged around a little circle where the streets would converge. And then then God showed me it zooming out, and it became this almost like a Christmas display with these lights everywhere, which symbolized these little tiny, you know, communities that were built of tiny houses. And then I had suggested, you know, this could involve, obviously the Bible talks about war and famines and all this stuff, which these kind of like external events in the United States, like, you know, there being civil war, possibly famine, terror attacks, pandemics, the fiat money collapsing, you know, invading armies, that kind of stuff, which can all very much happen. And there's also, I kind of watch different people that I trust on YouTube that are prophetic people. And there's two women in particular that talked about, this is a period of, that we were in this is a year ago, they said this, but we were in 7 years. We're going to have 7 years of prosperity in our country, relative prosperity. And that agrees with the first part of what was shown to me, that, you know, the blade of grass, wheatgrass, and the cow was a period, these cows were fat, they weren't, you know, it just refers to the Joseph dream, that we're going to have prosperity for a period of time, which likely can mean 7 years, actually, you know, that aligns with the Bible. But there's a period of time in the United States we're going to have this prosperity, which was what we're actually seeing. And this prophet on YouTube, the prophetess, I should say, shared that that's what God had shown her, and I would agree with it, which is what agrees with what I saw in this. I didn't really talk much about it in this video, but that's what is going to happen. But when God also was kind of showing me, so I prayed a lot to just, God, give me more. This is one of those prophetic things where I felt like he didn't really give me any more than that, and I felt like it was kind of, there's more to it than what those small few things he showed me. And so I prayed, I said, God, please give me, this is a couple of weeks ago, I prayed, God, please give me more insight and visions and into this, because I don't think I fully understood, or the full revelation wasn't given to me. And so I asked God, and because I was also thinking about the dangers that I saw in this world. Obviously, we have governments that are fighting each other and that kind of stuff. And then I thought about nuclear war and how very a full-blown nuclear war could wipe out humanity, really. And people don't realize how serious that is. If they think about all the nuclear reactors in the world that could go full meltdowns and all that stuff. This is very dangerous. But I also asked God about AI, because it seemed to me that there was a lot I didn't really know about AI. But it seemed like it could be very dangerous as well, and I didn't really, know for sure. I hadn't really looked into it too much. And really AI, if you think about it, it's a false, the meaning is really a false, artificial, which means false, right? False intelligence. And ultimately it's a false God, it's a false God that people are going to give a lot of authority and power to, that if you look at it in a biblical sense, it's a false God, that will control people's lives to some extent. And, so I had, and ultimately, if you believe the Bible, these entities that are more and more control of our life are ultimately demonic. And I want to show you from this verse video that, first of all, that, in talking about AI, currently right now, there are $20,000 robots that are being programmed, and these things are going to soon be as intelligent as Einstein. So you can have a robot in your house for $20,000. I think it's what is it called? Something tree, but basically these robots that are smaller, robots can be programmed to do anything, to dance, to sing, to do all kinds of stuff, and they're $20,000 currently, and they can do tasks that any human can do, just about, and they can be programmed as soon they're self-learning. So, and they build off of the learning of what it's already done. So these things are going to be $20,000 robots that will be as smarter than most people, and be able to do tasks that just about anybody, humans can do. So that's the point of this video I'm going to show you in a second, that we're getting to the place where, single computers and even AI robots are going to be as smart as humans. Well, Einstein, I think, had 150 IQ, and these robots will be smarter than Einstein very shortly. So they call this AGI, which is computers as smart as people. Then there's also something called ASI, which is, they think, could be in 6 years from now, or approximately, where it's smarter than, one computer will be smarter than the sum of all humans. That is a crazy statement. And that automation, by automating these robots and these AI systems, that there'll be few humans that'll be left to be employed. So whatever the number is, 80-90% of humans will be unemployed. So here's the video, and I'll let you watch it.
One way to say this is that within 3 to 5 years, we'll have what is called general intelligence, AGI, which can be defined as a system that is as smart as the smartest mathematician, physicist, artist, writer, thinker, politician, maybe not in the same level, but you get the idea. Just the creative industries and so forth, but imagine that in one computer. Okay, well, that's pretty interesting. I call this, by the way, the San Francisco consensus, because everyone who believes this is in San Francisco. It may be the water. what happens when every single one of us has the equivalent of the smartest human on every problem in our pocket? So it means you have the best architect when you have an architecture problem. Another thing that's going on is the development of agentic solutions. And agents are referred to systems that have input and output in memory, and they learn. An example here is that I want to buy another house. I happen to like Virginia. I grew up in Virginia. I say, find me a house in the greater McLean area. Look at that's one agent. Look at all the rules, figure out how big a house I can build. That's another agent. Do the transaction to buy the land. That's another agent. Design the house with a human architect, right? But sort of ignore them for most of the thing, but they have to sign it off. And then I approve it, and then find the contractor, right? Hire the contractor, pay the bills, and at the end, sue the contractor for lack of performance. Okay? Now, I just gave you the stupidest possible explanation. I just described every business process, every government process, and every sort of academic process in our nation.
So it isn't just the programmers that are going to be out of work. We're all going to be out of work.
No, that's not a consequence. I'll come to that. But the reason I want to make the point here is that in the next year or two, this foundation is being locked in, and we're not going to stop it. It gets much more interesting after that. Because remember, the computers are now doing self-improvement. They're learning how to plan, and they don't have to listen to us anymore. We call that superintelligence, or ASI, artificial superintelligence. And this is the theory that there will be computers that are smarter than the sum of humans. No. The San Francisco consensus is this occurs within 6 years, just based on scaling. Now, in order to pull this off, you have to have an enormous amount of power. I was here yesterday testifying about this, and we need, I can talk at some length about how many gigawatts and how many nuclear power plants and all that kind of stuff we can talk about separately. This path is not understood in our society. There's no language for what happens with the arrival of this. I wrote a book on this with Henry Kissinger called Genesis, which I recommend, obviously, because I wrote
Available.
it. Available in your usual places. But the important point is, this is happening faster than our society, our democracy, our laws will address. And there's lots of implications. That's why it's underhyped. People do not understand what happens when you have intelligence at this level, which is largely free. That's the point.
How do we get ready for it?
Well, we start by talking about it. And by the way, on the jobs thing, everyone assumes that automation will eliminate jobs. If you look at the history of automation ever since the looms and 300 years ago, the jobs are changed, but more jobs are created than destroyed. In this case, you'd have to convince me that this time is different. If you look in Asia, where they, for whatever reason, are choosing not to have children, the Asian reproduction rate is in the order of 1.0 or lower. So they're rapidly disappearing. So the Asian countries are very, very quickly automating. The tools that I'm describing will allow the few humans that will be working very hard in 30 or 40 years if these trends continue. The rest of us will be dependent on those hardworking humans. It'll make their productivity much greater.